Welcome, everybody, to a very exciting week in the Geoguessr Reddit League. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined, as always, by Calamity.
Hello.
And our special guest this week is Mr. Blue. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty fine. Things are going well in the league, as you may have seen, and generally with myself as the person going fine as well. Been to my home country for a few weeks, and I'm finally back in Bulgaria right now.
Oh, sounds nice. Well, let's just jump right into Division 1, which was the very last week of the regular season for them. So let's take a look at those results. Calamity, probably what sticks out here, is a very strong performance by Raidman Mucha.
Yeah, of course, Raidman Mucha, very, very strong results, and tough for GC to go up against him in this week. But his season probably didn't go wrong this week. That was prior. But actually, there's a couple of interesting matches. There was a lot still on the line in this last week. Equinox beating Schludi by 117 points in a direct duel for promotion probably stands out the most. Like losing out on promotion always hurts, but losing out on it by a bit over 200 points in a match where your opponent made 3 mistakes while you only made 1 hurts just that little bit more. It also means that the Magyar and Simi matchup had no direct consequence on the table apart from the 1 place lost for Simi himself, because Magyar would have finished 4th either way. The other important direct confrontation ended with a win for Chicago. After Verdok beat Chicago in both previous world maps, he couldn't replicate his performance, and 1 big miss in Japan cost him his place in Division 1. You kind of also have to wonder how serious Comp Bilou took his match after seeing him give up in Kyrgyzstan that easily. And considering how well he did on the 2 previous world maps, 21,000 points doesn't look that good. So gotta wonder about that one.
Yeah, pretty much he was kind of sunk in that last position. Not much he could do even with this final match. So probably just give it the old college try, but not much more than that. Mr. Blue, anything that really stood out for you here?
Yeah, first of all, the very tight match between Schludi and Equinox. I think that this was really not many points difference between them, and could have easily gone the other way around. And if that would have been the case, that would have been interesting because Magyaron got sort of a freebie here in this game against Simi, which is of course understandable, also knowing that Simi was already qualified. But that would have been interesting if it would be the other way around, because then in that case, I think Equinox would be out, right? If I'm understanding it correctly. So that was an interesting game, and very, very close, as you can see there. And other than that, I think that I like the the freebie that Magyaron got. Chicago, no, what the other one? Geography Challenges would have loved to have something like that against Raidman Mucha.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's see what that means for how this table finished and those playoff and relegation battles to come after a 2-week break in Division 1. So Rainman does finish on top of the table. Doesn't mean a whole lot, as all 4 of those top players go into the playoffs. Simi, Equinox, and Magyaron rounding out that top 4. Studi, just missing out barely. And Kevin, though, probably giving himself a little bit of a boost out of that relegation fight, which is left to Geography Challenges Chicago for that. Verdok and Comte Bleu, the French duo, will unfortunately be automatically relegated down to Division 2 next season. So Calamity, anything interesting about how this table finished for Division 1?
Yeah, overall, I'd say the top 4 aren't a massive surprise. If you'd asked me before the start of the season, I would have probably replaced Equinox with GC, but that's about it. The thing I'd like to mention here is, if you guys remember, Equinox was the only player in Division 1 to get a yellow card, therefore giving a free win over to his opponent. In the end, it was irrelevant for Equinox because he finished in the playoff positions anyway, but that opponent was Kevin Kroner, who got himself 3 free points with a pretty bad score in Kyrgyzstan. And what most of you probably don't know is that Equinox actually played that game just a bit after the deadline and got a better score than Kevin Kroner. So had he just played that game like maybe an hour or 2 earlier, Kevin Croner would now be the one who'd be in the relegation match against Chicago. So huge implications there that no one was aware of back when it actually happened.
Yeah, indeed. As you look at that table, Kevin Croner has a win, draw, loss ratio of 2, 3, and 4. So definitely finishing above where that would give him normally because of that free win right there. 14 points, beating GC on score differential only. Yeah, Mr. Blue, anything from you on this Division 1 table?
Yeah, I would like to add something to that actually, because also the fact that Kevin Croner got an extra bonus point for 25k in Sweden, he still managed to get into this position as well. So that is altogether a very fortunate situation for him. But of course, he managed to do the 25k, so well done to him there as well. Altogether, I think that Chicago has been very happy with winning this last match, because then he avoids the relegation, of course. So yeah, looks very interesting, and yeah, looking interesting to see the playoffs here as well, of course.
Indeed. Well, it should be very interesting. This division does have a 2-week bye week, and then we'll see them back refreshed in 2 weeks for that playoff and relegation fight to come. So let's take a look at the results from Division 2 on that world map. Mr. Blue, a very, very good score from you, but just unfortunately not quite enough, with Radu putting up a perfect game.
Yeah, the pinpointing in Florida cost me the bonus point here, unfortunately. So after I played, I expected RC to go perfect, and of course he did. I also enjoyed the big win of the good win from Stimfalix here, Giovanni. He did really well, and yeah, I think it was very important for Radox and Seppo to win these matches as well.
Yeah, a really good win for Radox. Sees him climb up the table just a little bit further. We'll see in a bit. Clement, anything from you here?
Yeah, same as last week. This one match that still hasn't been played at the point of the recording. Tol Impala against Yellow Scamri this week. Also same as last week. I'll pin a comment about the result as soon as I know it. But yeah, Benica and Teskotak was the match to decide who would end their bad run. They drew. Did that stop both their bad runs or neither? Difficult to answer. They both got some points, but Teskotak didn't move in the table and Benica actually dropped the position. So yeah. Division 2 also picks up their first bonus points for perfect scores this week, as Mr. Blues already pointed out, with Radu and Giovanni. And yeah, Radox and Seppo, both very important wins down in the lower half of the table to get themselves a bit of air in the relegation fight.
Very nice. Let's see how that exactly played out in the table. Mr. Blue maintaining his 2-point advantage over Radu despite that loss. That point advantage and a little bit of a cushion helping him out there. Yeah, Giovanni climbing up a bit, and along with Tol Impala, rounding out those top 4 positions. Radox, and towards the bottom of the table, is getting ever closer to getting out of that relegation battle after being stuck in last or next to last spot for almost the entire season. So he's really finding his little bit of run of form here in the last few weeks. But unfortunately, as Calamity said, for Benica, he's still having difficulty getting any points at all. And Teskotak, I guess you could just say his early run of form in the season is kind of keeping him afloat a bit, but he is slowly falling down from the top of that table. But yeah, Mr. Blue, do you feel safe at the top with about 2 weeks left to go?
Well, not really, because you guys keep telling me that I'm having a big lead all the time. But as you can see, it is actually not as big as it may look like. And especially the last few weeks where I have drawn against Giovanni, also against RC. And then bonus points come into place. And then also the match against Tol Impala was actually very, very close. So it's not really that big as a lead as it seems like. So I'm really not that confident about it. Of course, I'm going to play against Blockchain and Seppo for the last 2 matches. So that should maybe be okay. But I will never underestimate anyone here in this division for sure.
Anything on also this table from you?
Sorry. Yeah, also keeping in mind that also the fact that of course the bottom of the table is starting to get very exciting as well, and you can see number 7 and 8 the people that I'm going to play still against are definitely willing to keep winning and stay above the other three.
Yeah, indeed. Calamity.
Yeah, it's basically 7th to 11th, deciding who will take which position at the end of the season down there in the relegation places. Yeah, as Mr. Blue said, he's playing against Seppo and Blockchain, so those two already have one difficult matchup each. Maybe a bit of a chance for the other three to overtake them. Slovak goalie in a bit of a bad place down there, 5 points already behind 10th place, and he doesn't even know Skamri might win his match against Tall Impala. Then it's almost completely out of reach without any bonus points for a perfect score, because his score differential is also quite bad. So yeah, top half, actually no movement whatsoever there. We'll have to see what Tall Impala, how Tall Impala's match against Skarmory goes to say whether it'll be a top 3 fight for the 2 automatic places, or whether Tall Impala can take part in that fight as well.
Yeah, indeed. So let's take a look exactly at those matchups next week in Puerto Rico for Division 2. As Mr. Blue said, he is up against Blockchains in 8th place. But Mr. Blue, probably the most important matchup of the week is Giovanni and Tall Impala at 3rd and 4th facing each other.
Yeah, this will be sort of. I mean, like, it depends on the end rankings of the season, of course. But if they stay 3 and 4 at the end of the season, they will have to fight against each other again. So this could be some of a warm up to them, and maybe the first chance to put someone in a bad feeling about it.
Very interesting indeed. Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is just impossible to predict for me, since it's just a really, really easy map. It doesn't really have any hard seeds, so it will entirely come down to the ability of pinpointing and the nerves to not make any mistakes. Yeah, as you said, Giovanni Tall Impala is probably the most important match in regards to the top of the table. Obviously, important matches for everyone here, but that's the one between the 2 closest competitors.
Indeed, yeah, and doesn't get easier for Radox to try to climb out of that relegation fight with Aistaru coming up next, and Benica probably not going to stop his slide, facing off against Radu as well. So very interesting final 2 weeks to come for them in Division 2. But let's take a look now then at Division 3 and their results on the world map. Wakalach getting that bye week, Calamity, but anything else that really stands out to you here in Division 3?
Not a lot. Relatively good scores all around. Fios getting basically a free win because Redirect timed out on one of the rounds. So was I surprised about anything? Not really. If anything, MD Spaceman against Pork Steaks, both putting up great scores, but the draw doesn't really help either of them very much, as we'll see once we look at the table. Other than that, mostly as expected. I'm very happy about my win against M the Basement, of course. That was a game you probably couldn't have predicted. Same as Freckles versus Squalo Wizard. Again, both putting up great scores. Just Freckles probably the more experienced player, putting up close to a perfect score there.
Yeah, Mr. Blue.
Yeah, I think that Theos is on fire. Okay, he got maybe this one a little bit cheaper, but he has been performing really well in the last couple of weeks, so well done to him. Then there is the Freckles upset, which is good for the rankings, as you will see in a few minutes. And then also we can see, of course, the win of Calamity, that is at the same time also really opening up the table here.
Indeed. So let's take a look at that table right now then. With the tie between MD, Spaceman, and Pork Steaks, this division gets its first draw. But other than that, not a whole lot of movement, Calamity.
Yeah, losses to both Guelo Wizard and M the Baseman keep the table close at least. Fierce is the one with the by far easiest schedule for the rest of the season. He's having to go up against 10th and 11th. In Pork Steaks and MD Spaceman, but he's also far from consistent, so it's not entirely unlikely that he doesn't pick up 2 wins there, especially because Pork Steaks and MD Spaceman both need every point they can get they can both still make their way out of the automatic relegation. But yeah, as I said, MD Spaceman needs both wins, and Porkstakes only has one more game to go, so he also definitely needs a win there.
Yeah, do you fancy your chances in staying in that top 4 places?
Well, considering I've already played my game in Puerto Rico, no. I'm actually relatively confident about Malaysia. I've started practicing like 2 games so far today, and I think I've got a chance against Guelo Wizard there, but it'll still be tough. It'll depend a bit on how the other games go, especially Wolf Tracker Guelo Wizard this week. That's going to have pretty big implications for that. And also, of course, both of Fierce's games in the next 2 weeks will decide whether he'll be able to overtake me or not.
Okay. Mr. Blue, anything from you on Division 3?
Besides what I've already said before, I think that the Wolf Tracker win was important for him, as you can see here in the rankings. So if he would have not won that game, he would still be in the bad form that he was in before, and now he can start looking into the top half of the ranking again, into the promotion places even. So that is going to be interesting for him, and I think that Porkstakes would have loved to have the win against MD Spaceman here, because that would have saved him as well from the relegation zone directly at this moment.
Indeed. So very tight at the bottom as well as the top. So these final 2 weeks are going to really be important for this division. Let's see who they'll be facing off against in week 10. As Calamity already mentioned, Porkstakes does have that bye week with Ijabag getting red carded out. But other than that, Calamity, any matches you're looking forward to seeing here?
I can actually give you some live updates right now. Scamry has just finished his leg.
Okay.
And he has lost against Tall Impala by 24,790 to 24,447.
Ooh, very close, though.
Yep.
Unfortunate for him. Yeah. So we'll have to wait for Schmingo to update the table to see exactly what that means.
Mm-hmm. Back to Division 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, same as for Division 2, kind of. It's very difficult to make predictions here. Guelo Wizard against Wolf Tracker, as I've mentioned before, is probably the most important game of the week. But also, an interesting one to look out for is Wakelock against Freckles, because it'll be Freckles' last match of the season. And he needs the win there to ensure that he doesn't at least have to go into the relegation playoff.
Okay, Mr. Blue, anything you're looking forward to in Division 3?
I'm looking forward to the Guelo Wizard against Wolf Tracker match, because I would like to see whether Wolf Tracker is back in form now and maybe cause the upset here by beating the leader in the division. And I'm also interested in the other important match here, which is then between Hugo Alvara and Calamity. You already don't sound very excited about it, but based on what we can see on paper, that is definitely an interesting matchup.
Yeah, Calamity giving a little bit of a hint as to what might be coming up this week, but we'll leave it at that so we don't spoil too much for you all. But yeah, let's jump into our first playoff matches of the season. Division 4 is a little bit ahead of the other divisions, and so they had their quarterfinal matches this week. So let's take a look at those scores. Mr. Blue, quite some interesting games here.
Indeed. I think from before, like everything started, the statistics show that the match between Max and H-Town would be the closest battle, based on the average points that they have scored before. But in reality, it was the least one interesting match here. So Max took that win, of course, but all the others were very, very exciting matches. And I think, the biggest upset here is Nitnorok beating Ed.
Yeah, which you called, Calamity.
Yeah, all of my predictions were correct for the quarterfinals. To be perfectly honest, I didn't actually predict Max H-Town. But yeah, I predicted Deep Thought to win the semifinal there. So yeah, Deep Thought, Mabos, you guys know what to do to get to the final to have all my predictions come true. But yeah, I already knew, when I made those predictions, I think I already knew Ed's score. So I I trusted in Nidnorok to put up a great game there, but still. Yeah, Marbo's getting a bit lucky there. Bit of a weaker game, but yeah, second weakest game actually of the 8 contestants. But having to play against the weakest game is, of course, always a bit of luck involved there. But yeah, as you said, all of them very close games except for H-Town and Max.
Yeah, I played that seat myself as well, and I saw actually my score was lower than Ed's even. So, yeah, there was like 1 or 2 different locations. The last 2 locations were quite hard to pinpoint.
Yeah, I actually messed up big in the Chiller location because I was looking in the right area, but I just couldn't see the town I was looking for. I pretty much 5k'd all of the other ones, but I lost a lot of points there, so mine was lower as well.
Wow. Very tough seed for those quarterfinals, making it a good match. But things pretty much going away as expected. Nitnorok, if you don't remember, was relegated from Division 3 last season, and he's just starting to show his run of form at the right time and where it really matters in the playoffs here to get him into the semifinals. So let's take a look at those matchups. A little bit more close. So yeah, Max FI versus Deep Thought and Malbos versus Nitnorok is our quarterfinal matchup. One thing to point out before I hand it over to you two is that 3 of the 4 players come from Division 4A. So obviously a very strong division. So Mr. Blue, your thoughts on these semifinal matchups?
Yeah, these are very interesting. Especially the first one, in my opinion, is very close because they're both from Scandinavia. As you can see, I've seen both of them play a lot of challenges within the whole Reddit scene, and they both seem to be very great, are equal to each other, in my opinion. So that is going to be a very interesting matchup. Nitnorok, I have not really seen much from before the tournament started, whereas Mabos, I've seen him a lot as well. So therefore, my feeling will be that Mabos is going to win that. But I said the same thing about Ed last week, so I'm not really sure about that anymore.
Okay, yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said before, for my predictions to come true, it has to be wins for Deep Thought and Mabos. It'll be interesting. I don't know how well Nitnorok will do in Puerto Rico because, as I've said before, it's a rather easy map. And I think Nitnorok has mostly failed so far this season in maps you'd usually have to practice for. So that could
true.
be his chance to have Puerto Rico here. In which case, I think it would make, if Nitnorok does win, it would probably make for a boring final because I'd heavily favor the winner of the other game against him in Malaysia. But yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking about how good these people are at pinpointing. I don't really have any reference in mind about them in that regard.
Yeah, maybe we can. Do I have the table? Where's my thing? You did mention last week, if we take a look at these stats from the players, that aces could have been a very good indicator, at least, of if a player finds his location fast enough to try to even do any serious pinpointing. And we do see that Max FI and Mabos really take the field with that number of aces that they had, with Deep Thought not too far behind.
Yeah, barely a difference between Max and Deep Thought in that regard. But yeah, Mabos and Nitnorok, that's a big difference there. So that might point you in the direction that match is going to go.
Indeed. But that was the regular season. This is the playoffs. Anything can happen. And we'll definitely be looking forward to seeing who manages to pull out those matches and make it to the finals in Malaysia next week. Yeah, so let's take a look at the map they will be playing next week in a little bit more detail. It is Puerto Rico, created by Alok. It has an average score of about 21,889 points. It's only been played about 146 times, but that number will certainly go up with all the practice these players will put in. Only about 1,000 locations scattered throughout this small little island. So Calamity, any thoughts on Puerto Rico as a map?
Yeah, I'm just reading there. In the description, it says no unofficial coverage. I don't think Alec is watching these, but I think I had about 2 or so locations of unofficial coverage in practice. So might want to take those out. But yeah, I started talking about it a bit beforehand, that I think Puerto Rico is a very easy map, and you can see it a bit on the average score there. Especially if you've seen there's two roads in the middle of Puerto Rico that sort of go north south, and they're a bit hard to get the first time you have them. But other than that, you usually are within at most 1 or 2 kilometers of a junction that has road numbers on it, and the road numbers are usually relatively well ordered within the country. So it's not really a problem to get a good score. The actual problem is getting a perfect score, because as with most small countries, 15 meters is your area of basically your leeway to get a perfect score. And there's a lot of long roads with not a lot of distinctive features that make it quite hard to pinpoint.
Indeed. Yeah, small countries always pose that challenge of not being very generous with the points. Mr. Blue, your thoughts on Puerto Rico?
Very similar to what Calamity just said. I mean, like, I've not really played a full round in Puerto Rico yet, so I'm going to try these the other seat, of course, and I'm going to do some other games. I always look at the footage in the map maker as well, because I think that's very useful to do. Other than that, I've had rounds, of course, in Puerto Rico before, and generally they are indeed fairly easy. To find the right locations and so on. What I do notice, what I would like to point out actually, is that when I watch the footage that you guys are showing, is that quite often I see that some people tend to rush a little bit too much, in my opinion, and try to cover as much distance as possible. Whereas, in my personal opinion, it's very useful to stay close to where you are and find as much information as possible within that area. And I think that generally helps in pinpointing much better.
Okay, yeah, probably a good piece of advice, especially on a smaller map for Mr. Blue there. Make use of everything you can in your space, because you won't get a whole lot, maybe, depending on where you are. But yeah, certainly Puerto Rico poses some interesting challenges for our players next week. So yeah, I'll look forward to seeing that. Well, that'll do it for us this week. A little bit of a shorter thing with Division 1 coming to an end and their bye week starting. But yeah, an exciting time all around. Division 2 and 3 getting really close to their playoff spots. Division 1 wrapping up their regular season, and Division 4 heading into their semifinals next week. So hopefully we'll see you all there. Thank you for joining us. If you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. It lets us know you're enjoying this and want to see more of it. And we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.